Hello and welcome to Europe on Tour, our show on the European elections. Today we are going to talk about the election campaign, and I'm very pleased to welcome in our studio Daniel Rosario, the Brussels correspondent from Radio Renascenca from Portugal. Hello, Daniel.
Hello.
And we have Barbara Peranic, who came all the way from Zagreb. She's from HRT Radio from Croatia.
Hello, everyone. Nice to be here. Yeah.
And we have Magdalena Skajewska, Brussels correspondent from Polskie Radio from Poland.
Hello. Hi. Thanks for having me.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. Let's start. Daniel, since we now know all the names of the leading candidates, the groups have made their choice, the campaign could start. So far, we didn't hear so much about it. What about the situation in Portugal? Is there any campaign going on there?
Yeah, indeed. There is lots of noise and also around European elections, lots of buzz. But I wouldn't say that it's for the wrong reasons, but it's not definitely not about any EU subjects or any EU priorities or anything concerning Portugal's stance in the European Union. The whole thing is related to the internal political debate. So in the last weeks, all the parties presented their candidates. The last ones were the socialists to present the whole candidates list, and they are the likely winners according to the polls of the next elections. But what's at stake and the whole discussion going on, it's about internal politics, because we are having national elections next year in principle in June 2015. So so far the European elections are about the national elections, are about punishing the government or defending the government, depending on what side of the fence you are standing.
Okay, Barbara, Croatia is a very young member of the European Union. These are the second European election. Is there anything left of the enthusiasm of joining the European Union?
I'm afraid I have to say no. First European elections were held last April, before the country joined the EU, and the turnout was 20.8%. So it speaks for itself, yeah. So right now, I think the aim of everyone involved in the European elections is to mobilize voters to come in larger numbers.
Do you expect more people going to vote?
We'll see, but according to polls right now, I wouldn't be too optimistic about it, to be honest.
Is there any campaign going on so far?
Right now, we're same as in Portugal in the process of making lists, and the deadline for submitting list is next week, April the 4th. So pretty much everything is based around who is whose candidate and on which position on the list is he or she based. But we're expecting more of a campaign in the later months and coming weeks, hopefully. But I think it will be around national issues again.
Mm-hmm. Magda, your Prime Minister, Donald Tusk, was one of the possible candidates of the frontrunners candidates for the European People's Party. Now, he didn't throw his head in the ring. So what was the reaction about that in your country? Was there any disappointment about that?
Well, actually, it was, even for Polish journalists, I think it was a big conundrum whether Donald Tusk will actually run for the President of the European Commission. Because every time when he was asked about that, he always was saying, no, I'm not interested. I'm committed to national politics, to my prime ministerial role, and I want to finish my job in 2015, at least in 2015, and I'm not interested by the European job. So even last December and even earlier last year, when there were rumors that Chancellor Angela Merkel is trying to convince him to run for the European elections, yes, he was always saying that, no, it's not for me. I'm the Prime Minister of Poland and I want to be the Prime Minister of Poland. So it wasn't a huge surprise for us that he was not chosen. And we know that now it's Jean-Claude Juncker who's going to be the main official candidate of the EPP party. So it seems like for Donald Tusk, the game is over even before it was started.
And do you think the campaign would have been different with him as a front runner?
Well, I think
in Poland, no?
The major factor that will and already have an influence on the European campaign in Poland is actually the situation in Ukraine. Given the current crisis in Crimea and relations with Russia, it was very crystal clear that it's the situation in Ukraine, it's the issue of national security, European security, energy independency, all of those things that are linked to the crisis in Crimea that will play a huge role in the European campaign. Because technically in Poland, the campaign started, I think, in February, but only last Saturday, two major political parties presented their candidates and their programs for the campaign, and it was very clear that it's Ukraine and it's Russia, and even as Donald Tusk was saying, the future of Europe will be defined in those elections, because it will be mainly about a relationship between European and Russia and Poland and Russia. So it's mainly about the national security, as they say.
Okay. Dania, the current president of the European Commission, he's Portuguese, is José Manuel Barroso. Was the fact that Portuguese is the president of the European Commission, did that raise the interest of the people to European politics in your country?
In a way, I think we have to admit that, yes, but to what extent that really happened, it's difficult to assess. The fact that you have a countryman in a top job in the EU attracts more attention. He's more often on the news. But does this make the EU more popular or more interesting to the people? That remains to be seen. For instance, there was some buzz that Barroso might present himself as a candidate for the presidential elections in Portugal, but apparently the polls are not that positive for him. So because Portugal is going through an adjustment program, it's about to finish it after 3 years. That had a huge economic and social impact. And in a way, people associate what happened to Portugal to the EU, to the European Commission, and ultimately also to Barroso as one of the faces of the Troika. So for the good, for the bad reasons, yes, indeed, the fact that he's now the president of the European Commission gives some high profile to some EU issues in Portugal. But then again, for some Portuguese-related topics, in this case, very specifically, the adjustment program that Portugal is going through and that is going to be finished just a week before the European elections, that is going to be probably the main theme in the campaign.
Mm-hmm. Speaking about the front runners, we have Jean-Claude Juncker, who often says that he has the support of the countries from the south, and we have Martin Schulz, the president of the European Parliament. He's social democrat, but he's also a German, and Germany kind of stands for austerity. So what do you think? Are the people interested in the battle between those two, and who do you think they prefer in Portugal?
I think that the general public, I doubt that it will be very interested in the subject. They are not completely unknown people in Portugal, because they visited Portugal a few times in their capacities as president of the European Parliament, or as Jean-Claude Juncker as president of the Eurogroup. So their visits had some impact, again, in the context of the Troika program that Portugal is going through. So people are not completely indifferent to that, but I wouldn't say that the fact that they are running would make a big difference in attracting more people. As far as to which one would be more closer to Portugal, the fact is that both of them played the Portuguese card, in the sense that Juncker comes from Luxembourg, where you have a huge Portuguese community, and he knows how to speak to the heart of the Portuguese whenever he has a Portuguese microphone in front of him. And again, Schulz, the same thing. Whenever he visited Portugal, he managed to speak to the heart of the people. So I think it would be like in between both of them.
Okay, Barbara, the fight between Juncker and Martin Schulz, is that something that the people are excited about in Croatia?
It's not featuring prominently in the media so far, and I would say that people are not that much familiar because we're a new member state. So it really depends on the interests of individual interests of a person to become more interested in the issues. And so I would say that these two candidates, I mean, Croatia is not a big country. It's not going to play an important role in their agenda. But I would say that there's still work to be done for them to become sort of a known personalities in Croatia, wider public, not public who specifically follows the EU issues.
You're also having national elections next year. You think the campaign will be very linked, like Daniel said?
Definitely. Very linked. And all parties actually consider this as a test for parliamentary elections next year. And even small parties, which just appear on the scene, we have quite a number of them. They see these European elections as a good opportunity to sort of raise their profile in the public as well, and to test their candidates without really expecting them to win a seat in the parliament, just because of the next year.
So do you expect some going back to national politics after these?
MEPs, you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, they will have to go back, I think, because... some of them, I think they really, this European Parliament experience has been valuable for them as a person, as a politician, so they might even use this in national politics as well afterwards.
Magdalena, the Polish group is much bigger. They have about 50 MEPs, and if you look at the list, they are not nobodies. Some of them are very famous. What about the careers of these politicians? Is there a clear division between a national political career and a European one?
You mean in the current term? Or?
Yeah.
Well, it very much depends. There are Eurodeputies, Polish Eurodeputies who are, I would say, experts in their fields. We've got Eurodeputies who are very good when it comes to foreign policy of the European Union, issues related to climate change and energy. But there are also those who prefer to be more present in national politics. And it goes without saying that if you want to be active in the national politics, and if you want to raise national issues, you have to be present in Poland. You have to spend more time in Poland than any other Eurodeputy. So, it reflects also their engagement in European issue. I think it's a problem mostly of more right-wing politicians who prefer, as I said, to be more engaged in Polish politics, to be a lot in the media and give a lot of comments on what's currently happening in Poland. And, that reflects their lack of engagement in European politics. But as I said, especially in the EPP group, there are Eurodeputies who are very much involved in what's going on here in Brussels and in Strasbourg and want to put forward their ideas.
Is there any crossover of the politicians going back to national politics later?
I would much rather say that there are Polish national politicians who are trying to get to Brussels. So on the list that is for the next elections, we can see many former ministers, former deputy prime minister. So people who used to be involved and very much present in national politics, and that now they are trying to get to Brussels. There are some experts as well. There are also like celebrities for some reason. So the list are very, very, very interesting from that point of view.
Daniel, Portugal has, I think, about 20 members
21. It's going to be 21, yeah.
In the European Parliament. What about them? Are they really specialists in European politics?
Some of them, yes, maybe you could call them specialists, since I would say more or less half of the members of the candidates that will likely be elected in the next elections, they are repeating. They are either on their second or third term, so that should make them specialists. Some of them are really
they really stay here.
Yes, and some of them had a high profile during the last term in the Economical Affairs Committee, in the External Affairs Committee. But the other half, I think it's a little bit the same everywhere. It's some people being paid by some political favors in the past, or just some politicians that want to add the European Parliament to their curriculum. But this doesn't necessarily mean that the Parliament became like the golden cage for retired politicians, because we still see that whenever there is whenever we have national elections and is formed a new government, some ministers are always picked from the European Parliament. So it's how you say, rotating door kind of.
In fact, what about José Manuel Barroso? Do we know what he's going to do?
We don't, and maybe he doesn't know. The thing is that, like always, he keeps all the options open. He doesn't rule out anything. The only thing he's said so far is that he's not going to stand for a third term in the European Commission. But that, in theory, doesn't mean that he cannot become again the president of the European Commission. But then all the options are open, either on the international, European, or national scene.
So we see about that. We're running out of time. Maybe a last quick round about the expected topic of the election campaign. Baba, Magdalena was saying that Ukraine is the big topic in Poland. What about Croatia? What do you expect?
In Croatia, I would say that, last year when we had our first elections, everything rotated around high salaries, especially when you compare the salaries to the ones in Croatia. They're like 9 or even 10 times higher. So even last week when the president, actually 21st of March, when the president called for the elections, he said, "I would like this campaign to be fought on European issues." So presumably we will see a lot of economic stuff and topics coming up on the surface, hopefully. And energy, not efficiency, but sustainability and independence. Hopefully, it will come in the focus as well of the public.
Magda, apart from Ukraine, do you expect another big topic?
I wouldn't expect any bigger topic than that. Russia and Ukraine, and as I said, national security and energy independency, that will be basically at the forefront of everyone's mind. But of course, there are smaller parties who talk about more European integration, Poland joining the euro. But it goes without saying that with the current situation in Ukraine, any other topic cannot be really discussed on a large scale, because that's what concerns Poles and Europeans, according to Polish politicians.
Daniel, what do you expect from the campaign? Austerity? Is
Definitely. Not maybe on those terms. Yes, austerity, but coincidence or not, Portugal comes out of this adjustment program after 3 years, just a week before the elections. Probably will go for this clean exit without any additional financial support from the Eurozone partners. So this will be the main subject. Is the glass half empty or half full? And some parties may put on the agenda the discussion on whether Portugal should remain or should quit the euro. But will it become a subject in the campaign? We'll see, but definitely austerity.
Okay, thank you. 8 weeks to go before the election. We are going to have more opportunities to talk about the campaign. Thank you for joining us in our studio in Brussels, and see you soon on Europe on Tour.